Hello everyone, welcome to another card combo show with me, Chocobilly. And the card, or cards, I'm looking at this week are quite infamous. Yeah, you know the ones I'm on about. They are the Soiree team. So I'm going to break this episode up into kind of two halves. So the first half will be focusing on just the backup engine, because it runs very consistently on its own, and you don't really require Madame Adele and all the other forwards to make it work. And if you're running a multi-element deck, then this is a really good way to go about it, and it's been played a lot recently. This whole package has been played a lot since day one, and it's easy to see why. None of them are particularly hard to come by. Madame Adele herself being hero, which, albeit the second rarest, still not hard to get. Well, technically the third rarest now that we've got the special sign cards, but you know what I mean. But yeah, they're really, really powerful, have strong effects all on their own, but then Madame Adele protecting them as well, just really good. Multi-element casting off of Shinju, so yeah. Oh, sorry, no, off of Amber. Oh, it is off of Shinju. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, really, really strong. So the first half will be focusing on just the backups and how you can utilize those, and then the second half will be using Madame Adele and how, you know, you might benefit off of utilizing the entire package, so using the forwards as well. So, first up, we have Warrior of Light. Big surprise. Obviously, you can play Warrior of Light with basically all of the backups. You just need to be able to generate your water somehow. But you run this sort of backup engine, you're probably running something like Tyro, Shantoto to be able to generate that water to then play Warrior Light onto the field and actually hardcast them onto the field, which means that you get the reactivation and the draw card effect as well. Well, bit of a weird one. Now, obviously, this doesn't work if you're running Shantoto, but it does if you have Tyro, because when Wall enters the field, if there are exactly 3 different elements among the characters you control, you may search one multi-element forward and add it to your hand. So if you've got Earth, Wind, Fire, which is the band, funnily enough, it means that you can search your Warrior of Light and then play him onto the field. So, not too bad. Cactuar, no, the other one. So choose one forward, deal 4,000 damage for each CP of a different element you paid to cast Cactuar. So with just Elbus, Lexa, and then either of the 2 Earth backups, that's still 12,000 damage. Not too shabby for a full CP summon. But then if you want to maybe throw Tyro into the mix and then pay, I don't know, water, ice, whatever, you can then top that up to 16k. And if you can pay a 5th different element, then, you know, just make it 20k, because why not? And then this Cactuar, obviously, which always gets played with these guys. So long as you pay with 3 elements or more, this Cactuar won't deal any point of damage, but ultimately it's unmitigated break on literally anything that can be targeted by Cactuar. Really, really good. Obviously, there's all loads of other summons as well that actually work with this. Ironically, I don't remember the wind or fire ones, but there is the water one as well, which allows you to put something to the top and bottom of your opponent's deck and then draw a card as well if you wanted to. But yeah, still really strong summons. Thief. So similar to the summon we just looked at, there is, I think, one of this sort of card for every element from Opus 19. For example, the water one, which I think is not Selkie, I can't remember what it is now, but when it enters the field, if you paid enough elements, then your opponent, or you put one of your opponent's forwards into the break zone. But I went for wind because I prefer mill. Traditional mill. So when Thief enters the field, if the cost to cast Thief was paid by CP of 3 or more different elements, your opponent puts the top 3 cards of the deck into the break zone. So obviously you've got Earth, Fire, and Wind. Minwu. So it stands to reason if you are playing 3 different element backups, maybe even more, then you're probably going to have 3 different element summons, which you can then remove from your break zone to reduce Minwu's cost to then play onto the field. And then Minwu also works nicely with the forward package as well, because whilst Madame Adele protects from damage or outright breaks, it might be some other effects there that you don't want to have happen. So it might be targeting something to lose its effect, so Minwu can protect against that, or, you know, freezing, for example, as well. Minwu can protect against any ability for 1 turn, or just the first ability, rather. Arc. So, obviously, you play Arc onto the field, you reveal 5 cards, Fire, Earth, or Water card, add it to your hand, and, you know, even if you're running your backups, that's quite nice. If maybe you've only got your Amber and Lexa down, you might find your Elbus, then play onto the field, or, again, runs really, really nicely with the forward engine as well, because, again, if there are 4 or more elements among the forwards you control gain plus 2,000 power, and there's what, like an ice forward, a water forward, earth forward, so, you know, there's loads of different elements, and that means you might get Arc's effect, EX burst, find you any of these cards, just really, really strong. Leatherford. A little less strong, but still, it's an unmitigated break. When it enters the field, choose one forward. If your cost to cast Leatherford was CP of 3 or more different elements, break it. So it's 1 CP extra on top of the Cactuar summon, but obviously in wind. However, you do get a small forward out of it. Again, an unmitigated break, it's not the worst in the world, and it does give you a bit more firepower if you want to run it. Kefka. I mean, it's not a great card anyway, but still. So when it enters the field, if you pay only ice, your opponent discards 2 cards. If they don't, then you get to freeze all the forwards they control. However, when Kefka enters the field, if your cost to play Kefka was paid with a CP of exactly 3 different elements, so similar to... No, sorry, it's not similar to... Well, it is kind of similar to the wall. So if it's paid with exactly 3 elements, choose up to 1 forward, 1 backup, and 1 monster, dull and freeze them. So at least you are guaranteed to freeze those... freeze those things. Loperate. So if you're looking for that backup, and again this might be where maybe you're not running Tyro, or you've got, you know, you're looking for that extra backup, Loperate might be a way to go to be able to find that backup. Obviously there is also the Miner as well, which can reveal the top 4 or 5 cards, and you get a backup to your hand, but Loperate I prefer because you're putting cards back into your deck as well. So if you've drawn maybe an Amber and Elbers to hand, they're already on the field, you can put them back into your deck, which means they're good for another EX burst, and that is ultimately one of the Loperate's best effects there. Also, again, it's got the break effect as well, so you can do the effect again, you've got dead draw, search, put those EX bursts back into your deck and get something better to hand. Boonavels. So the cost required to cast Boonavels is reduced by 2 for each backup of a different element you control other than multi-element. So it doesn't include Shantoto. But Earth, Fire, Wind means that Boonavels becomes a 4 CP 10k, which at damage 3 can attack twice with Brave, and at damage 6 can attack and choose a character and break it. That's pretty strong for only 4 CP. Now we'll move on to Madame Adele and focusing more on cards that will benefit from having a wider board using Madame Adele, and then obviously the other, I can't remember the other forwards' names, but the Lightning forward, the Ice forward, the Water forward, you know. So Luso. So for each forward other than Luso you control, he gains plus 1000 power, but if there are 3 or more different elements among the forwards you control, Luso gains First Strike and Brave. If there are 5 or more different elements among the forwards you control, Luso deals your opponent 1 point of damage. So obviously he's a bit slow because he doesn't have haste, which is a shame. However, still gets big off all the forwards you can play, and you know, with Madame Adele, she enters the field, plays a forward onto the field, different elements probably. So yeah, be able to utilize Luso with that as well to hopefully deal points of damage before you even have to technically deal the damage to your opponent, if you know what I mean. It means that's another aggressive option for you. Ace. So when he enters the field, choose one forward, reveal any number of cards from your hand, deal at 3000 damage for each different element among the revealed cards. So obviously you've got, you know, 3 different elements off of your backups already, but then with Madame Adele and the forward package, you've got lightning and ice as well. So it means that you've got even more different elements, so that Ace can start dealing, you know, potentially 12k upwards. And then when Ace attacks, he gains plus 1000 power for each different element among the characters you control until the end of the turn. So would be plus 3 off of just 3 backups, but then again more if you've got lightning or ice. Gilgamesh. So if you have 3 or more different elements among the cards in your break zone, he gains plus 1000 power, haste, and first strike. And if you have 7 or more, Gilgamesh also gains Brave, and Gilgamesh can attack 3 times in the same turn. And then when Gilgamesh attacks, choose one character. If you have 5 or more different elements among cards in your break zone, dull it and freeze it. So obviously you get 3 just off of your backups. Bear in mind these have to be in your break zone, but you know you'll generally run 3 of all of these cards because they're that strong. But off the backups you've got 3 already, but then you've also got ice, lightning, and water with the forwards as well. So if they're in the break zone, you're now immediately at 6. So all you need to do is try to shoehorn in a light or dark card, get that into your break zone, and all of a sudden Gilgamesh is at 7, can attack 3 times, done on freezing something every single time he attacks. Nice. Now, Hashmal is a fun one because obviously you can name a job and all the forwards you control gain plus 1000 power and that job. Not so focused on the element side here, but ultimately you choose a job and they gain it. Using that alongside Madame Adele means that or any forwards that aren't traditionally Soiree members then gain that job and also gain the protection off of Adele as well as gaining plus 1000. So funnily enough, you can actually use that just with Madame Adele, and she immediately becomes a Soiree member, which means that she's protected by her own ability, where traditionally she isn't. But again, it works really nicely with something like the Gilgamesh I just showed you, because it might be that your opponent wants to try and break him or deal damage to him. Hashmal means that ultimately he becomes a Soiree member, and yeah, I mean, to be honest, Hashmal works really nicely with any forward that you're playing alongside Madame Adele. Gilgamesh. So, when he enters the field, you may remove any number of cards from Break Zone from the game. When you do so, choose one forward of cost to equal less than the number of elements removed from the cards. Among removed cards, break it. So, again, works fine with the 3 different element backups, but with the forwards, you gain immediately access to 6 different elements, so you can break hopefully something of 6 cost or less. Morrow, so obviously you've got lots of different forwards of different elements, so throwing Morrow into the mix means that they can start party attacking as well. If you wanted, you could maybe throw, I've forgotten her name, Lice, whatever, the Earth forward. So when a forward you control, when a party you control does damage to your opponent, Lice then deals opponent damage and draws you a card, and things like that. So, you know, there's ways to be able to kind of work the party mechanic into it. Now, obviously, you could throw the Chocobo back up into the mix as well, but probably not going to happen. If you're running Madame Adele and those things, you probably want something like Tyro, or just, you know, something along those lines. But yeah, Chocobo isn't the best way to be able to get the party elements off, unless of course you just want to keep on doing that repeatedly. But yeah, ultimately Morrow makes the forwards you party can, or the forwards you control can party with any element. Kirin, again, fairly obviously played with Madame Adele. You play Kirin onto the field to play Madame Adele, hopefully, or just any of the Soiree members. But if you do hit Madame Adele, you then play one of the Soiree members from your break zone onto the field. So you immediately accelerate to 3 forwards, which is pretty gross. Ifalna, this is a fun one. So, one that hasn't really been played much with Madame Adele recently, and I can see why, but still. Pay X, put a Ifalna into the break zone, choose one Earth forward in your break zone. If it's cost X, play it onto the field. You can only use ability during your turn. So yeah, being able to replay Madame Adele to then replay something else is really good. So it might be a case that you're attacking with some of your forwards and your opponent breaks Madame Adele. You can't save her for whatever reason. They then have the option to then start breaking one of your other forwards. In response to them trying to do that, you break Ifalna to then bring Madame Adele back onto the field, to then bring another forward back onto the field, and then their original option of trying to break your other forward fails. Maria, bit of a weird one, but when she enters the field, you can make a backup into a forward, and if all the forwards cost 2 or less, gain plus 2,000 power other than Maria. Now, obviously, if you do that with Elbus, that's quite nice. He becomes a ultimately 10k forward. However, doing that with, you know, any of the other forwards as well is really good, because it means that you've got these big forwards that are just horrible, but also they gain Madame Adele's effect. So you could make Amber into a forward, and while she might only be an 8k, also gains that cannot be can't be broken and doesn't receive damage. So yeah, with Maria, really, really effective. Auron, Adele onto the field, another forward onto the field. Auron now immediately costs you 2 less CP. Pretty good, and again, he can be used to save you some damage, as well as potentially drawing you some cards as well. Jekt, so you got lots of forwards amongst your Soiree members. You attack with maybe 3 of them, so it could be, you know, 1 forward attacks, and then a party attack potentially, and then you play Jekt onto the field. When he enters the field, choose one forward. If 1 or more forwards are attacking this turn, return the chosen forward to your opponent's hand. If 3 or more forwards are attacking this turn, break the chosen forward and draw 1 card instead. So yeah, in a deck that traditionally likes a lot of forwards on the field, Jekt might not be a bad shout. Also, you can cancel things with Jekt block, but ultimately, bouncing something's fine, breaking something and drawing a card, even better. Titan Lord of Crags. So let's say you've got your opponent 6 points of damage, you can't push through. Play Titan Lord of Crags onto the field with Madame Adele and maybe a few of your Soiree members on the field, and then maybe a couple of your opponent's forwards. Deal the final point damage that way. Obviously, you're wiping your board, so be very careful. The opponent doesn't have a, I don't know, Amaterasu, something like that, but still. Axstar. Searches an FFB damage 3, so searches your Madame Adele, but also there's loads of really good EXs in the Soiree package, so you can also retrigger your Elbus or your Amber to then search something additional as well. So yeah, pretty cool. Cecil. Play Cecil onto the field, play Adele onto the field, play something from Breakdown onto the field. What more is there to say? And yeah, that's that. That is the Soiree package. It is so incredibly strong. It was played from day one, and it is still played today, and there's a good reason why. It's just very hard to get rid of. Aside from blanking, you know, Adele, even then your opponent's got Lexa to be able to protect her, and you run that with, you know, just other cards, Performance Protection as well, Mist Dragon, Amaterasu, things like that. It's just really, really strong. But yeah, let me know what you guys have run the Soiree package with. There's so many things it can go with, so I'll be intrigued to see what other people have done with it as well. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, be lucky, and I will see you in the next video.